Mackenzie from the Women's Direction, and happy World Pride! Hello, welcome back to the channel. As I said, happy World Pride. As of today, the day I'm filming this, it's actually the first day of Pride, so very exciting. It's also a special one for me because 2023 is the year that it's being hosted in my hometown of Sydney, Australia, so that is also very exciting. I thought it was a good year to maybe brush up on some LGBT cinema. Now, there are a lot of great films out there about the LGBT experience directed by men. You may have heard of Moonlight or Call Me By Your Name. On Netflix, there was a documentary, Disclosure, which was all about trans representation in film and television, which was very good. But they are all directed by men. And here at the Women's Direction, we are all about supporting voices that are not male. So I thought it would be good for me to try and find films about the LGBT experience directed by women and non-binary filmmakers, which is what I did. So I did watch a couple of films, and I've collated my list down to 10 that I highly recommend all of you check out for this World Pride. But first, a few honourable mentions. Now, I don't actually think you can have an LGBT films list without including the Matrix trilogy. Created by the Wachowski sisters, this film franchise's hidden context was not actualised until Lily and Lana came out publicly as trans in 2016. When asked if the Matrix films were about the trans experience, co-director Lily Wachowski said that was the original intention, but the world wasn't quite ready. Now highly regarded as one of the best, most important, and most groundbreaking sci-fi films of all time, the Matrix trilogy is always a fun watch, but perhaps a little bit more of a poignant one for this World Pride. Another honourable mention is Queen of the Desert, directed by Alex Kelly. This quick 30-minute documentary follows youth worker Starlady as she takes her hairdressing prowess into the remote Aboriginal community of Areyonga in Central Australia. It's presented in typical TV documentary style, but the film is an important insight into the exploration and expression of gender and how sharing knowledge can bring communities together. The final film I want to mention is Rafiki, directed by Wanuri Kahu. If you've been following the blog for any amount of time, you know how much love I have for this film ever since I saw it at Sydney Film Festival back in 2018. It's a lesbian forbidden love story that is equally as beautiful as it is heartbreaking, but you can read my full thoughts on it on the blog. Link will be in the description box below. So without wasting any more time, let's kick off with the list. Now, I've done these in no particular order, so for film number 1, it's gotta be Portrait of a Lady on Fire, directed by Celine Sciamma. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is the story of Marianne, a painter who is commissioned to do the wedding portrait of reluctant bride-to-be Eloise. The only catch, she must paint it without Eloise knowing. This slow burn has Sciamma's characteristic lack of soundtrack, which allows the audience to sit in each moment with the characters, feeling the tension in the room, sexual or otherwise. The silence also allows the sparse music to be used in a way that ignites key moments in a scene, both diegetically for the characters and for the audience simultaneously. The cinematography is also absolutely beautiful, with striking landscapes and ornate interior sets that set that romantic tone long before we see any physical indications of romance on screen. The film manages to comment much on modern-day lesbian relationships, as much as it presents the issues same-sex couples faced in the 1700s when the film is set. Portrait of a Lady on Fire has equally enough moments that will make you smile, as will make a tear form in your eye. Next on the list is Paris is Burning, directed by Jenny Livingston. This 1990 film is an absolute staple of queer culture, and you've probably heard Paris is Burning referenced before, most notably in RuPaul's Drag Race, because reading is what?
Fundamental!
That's right. This documentary, directed by Jenny Livingston, shines a spotlight on the underground ball culture of New York in the 1980s. Structured through interviews with real people, the subjects speak freely and are not afraid to be vulnerable or appear authentic on camera, which is a real testament to Livingston's filmmaking. There are plenty of definitions for words that have become a main part of queer vernacular in the last few decades, so if you've ever wondered about the origins of the words shade or realness or passing, then this documentary is where to get your education. Paris is Burning showcases how balls became a crucial safe space for marginalised communities who faced much discrimination at the time, even within the gay community, in part due to the AIDS epidemic. One of the foundation pillars of gay cinema, Paris is Burning is a must-watch.
It speaks for itself.
Now on to number 3, Appropriate Behaviour, directed by Desiree Akhavan. The ultimate mid-2010s indie vibes, Appropriate Behaviour is the story of Shirin, a bisexual Persian woman existing in New York who's trying to get her life back together after breaking up with her girlfriend. Oh, and she hasn't come out to her parents yet. It's pretty dry on the humour, only eliciting a couple of chuckles from me, but most of the comedy comes from the situational relatability. You'll often laugh because something happens that reminds you of a situation that happened in your own life. I'd liken it to something like HBO's Girls, only the characters in Appropriate Behaviour are far more realistic in my opinion. Inherently flawed, as humans are, but they're not jerks like the cast of characters in Girls kind of tend to be. It is definitely a film of its era, in that the costumes, sets, soundtrack, just general tone, all encapsulate that hipster button-up shirt drinking out of glass jars vibes. Ultimately, it is a good slice of life story about a real queer person just trying to do the best that they can, and it's a pretty chill watch for a quiet night this World Pride. Alrighty, let's move on to movie number 4, which is Shiva Baby, directed by Emma Seligman. And oh my god, talk about awkward. When college student Danielle attends a Shiva, she is already expecting an awkward family social event, but things soon spiral out of control when her ex-girlfriend and sugar daddy are also in attendance. The feature directorial debut from director Emma Seligman, Shiva Baby is an uncomfy social nightmare from start to finish. It's exceptionally well written with witty and sometimes forehead-slapping lines, and the cast does an incredible job of pulling us through this wake from hell. The camera work is so complimentary to creating that claustrophobic, anxiety-inducing atmosphere of this Shiva that you just want to run a million miles in the opposite direction as things keep getting worse and worse. Yet as the audience, we're stuck here with Danielle, and sometimes so close, it feels as if we're seeing the world through her eyes. The score of this film is also so fantastic. It just builds that atmosphere with the dissonant plucking of the violin, just escalating the tension in each awkward moment. This film could almost be too uncomfortable for some people, maybe those with anxiety, but some moments are just so relatable, and the cast gives fantastic performances, plus the style is so uniquely executed. I would 100% say that it is worth cringing your way through this dynamite of a debut.
Is that your life?
Yeah, yes, that's my life.
Wow, lucky you.
Alright, halfway through, our next film is Gay by Baby, directed by Maya Newell. This Australian documentary looks at the lives of 4 kids and their same-sex parents. Told through interviews with the children only and snippets of their everyday lives, Gay by Baby is a crucial piece of film that showcases the completely normal yet sometimes frustrating task of raising children as same-sex parents. Filmed during the lead up to Australia's vote on marriage equality, the impact of this issue on the families is evident. However, the kids behave like regular 12-year-olds, and most of the struggles presented are ones that all families go through. Teaching them to read, transitioning to high school, and dealing with sibling rivalry. It's a great documentary about a time of tension in Australia that we now all know ended in a triumph for LGBT families across the country. And seeing them all walk in the Mardi Gras parade at the end of the film definitely brought a tear to my eye. The next film on the list is Boys Don't Cry, directed by Kimberly Peirce. I'm going to put a bit of a trigger warning before I talk about this film. Boys Don't Cry has a lot of intense subject matter, so if you would prefer not to hear more about it, you can skip to the timestamp here and get to the next film. Released in 1999, a time when trans rights were virtually unheard of and definitely not seen on screen. Boys Don't Cry tells the true story of Brandon Tina. A trans man, while running away from his troubled past, begins a relationship with a girl called Lana. The relationship doesn't last long, however, as the revelation of his identity leads to his assault and subsequent murder. The film focuses on telling the story from Brandon's perspective, humanizing him and ultimately challenging the world's views of trans people at the time. It's harkened as one of the key pieces of new queer cinema, but has come under a smattering of fire about the decision to cast a cisgendered person, Hilary Swank, in the role of Brandon. The film also includes the graphic depiction of the assault and subsequent murder of Brandon, which could be triggering to some and are definitely uncomfortable and upsetting to watch. Director Kimberly Peirce gives a great interview with IndieWire into their 3-year casting process for Brandon and also the decision to include the assault in the film, and I'll leave a link to that interview in the description box below. It's an intense drama that will stick with you long after you watch it, but such an important milestone in cinema's progression towards including more LGBT and specifically trans characters in film moving forward. Okay, I think it's time for a bit of a tone shift, so our next film is But I'm a Cheerleader, directed by Jamie Babbitt. A colourful, comical look at conversion therapy, this film does kind of run the risk of rubbing people the wrong way, but it's so obviously satirical that it's hard to take the film seriously, despite the issues that it touches on. The juxtaposition of light jovial soundtrack and colour-blocked sets to the topics of discrimination against gay people and serious nature of conversion camps makes the problem easier to swallow without losing any of the point. But I'm a Cheerleader does a great job of showcasing the ridiculousness of caring about what anyone's sexuality even is, taking place in one of the gayest conversion camps you have ever seen. The comedy makes fun of stereotypes and gender roles, and honestly, just seeing RuPaul in a straight is great t-shirt at the start of the film kind of sets you up for the tone you can expect. It has the vibes of those slightly quirky, unhinged dark films from the late 80s, early 90s. Think like Heathers or Jawbreaker. It makes it the perfect film for a movie night with friends, particularly if those friends happen to be queer. Also, it has a musical theatre adaptation, and I'm sorry, but I can think of nothing more gay than that.
Okay, who wants to go down with me?
Alright, moving on. Our next film is 52 Tuesdays, directed by Sophie Hyde. Another Australian film, 52 Tuesdays is the story of 16-year-old Billy. When her mum tells her she wants to transition into a man, their time is limited to Tuesday afternoons for an entire year. Billy begins on an accelerated path towards independence, but not without a few bumps along the way. Actually filmed across a year on Tuesday afternoons each week, the newcomer cast grows and changes as they would naturally across the course of a year. Director Sophie Hyde also never gave the cast more of the script than they were shooting that week, which allows each new Tuesday to feel fresh and adds to the realness of the entire film. The style of the film's camera work acts like a bit of a video diary, with Billy actually speaking to camera at some points and even filming moments of her own. This, plus the fact that the film ebbs and flows with a real year of filming, gives important weight to the impact of someone's decision to transition, both on the lives of that person and those of the people closest to them. It was a little hard to watch sometimes, and I found myself sort of flip-flopping between whether I liked the character of Billy or not, but I think that's actually just testament to the actress's portrayal of a realistic teenage character. There are some pretty emotional and confrontational moments within the film, and I was pretty drained by the end of it, although I had been watching drama films all of that day, so I guess take that with a little bit of salt. Ultimately, it felt like an important film and a good representation to how far trans representation on screen has come since something like Boys Don't Cry. Alright, we're nearly at the end of the list, but number 9 is Kajillionaire, directed by Miranda July. Kajillionaire belongs to that category of slightly offbeat movies that made me fall in love with storytelling. When old Dolio, daughter of 2 scam artists, comes up with a plan to pay back their rent, her world is turned upside down when her parents invite a stranger, Melanie, to join in on the plan. With plenty of moments of physical and written comedy, this off-kilter story of a girl and her parents kind of goes down a path you wouldn't expect. I don't actually want to talk too heavily on the plot because I think the journey of this film is a really nice one to go through blind. But I will say that there are plenty of heartwarming and strange moments in this film that just really made me fall in love with it. The cast give really great performances, particularly Evan Rachel Wood as old Dolio. Kajillionaire is very different to a lot of other films on this list in that its gay energy, I guess, is a lot more subtle. I do think this is a strength of the film, however, as it's kind of exploring coming to terms with one's sexuality in a more internalized and less hypersexualized way. There's a lot to love about Kajillionaire, so I do recommend you check it out this World Pride.
This is the way the big one starts. If you're lucky, you'll get crushed, and then you just die right then and there.
And finally, number 10 on my list is Pariah, directed by Dee Rees. Alike is a Brooklyn-based teenager living in a strict household. When she begins to live a double life to appease her parents and explore her sexual orientation, things only end up spiraling out of her control. Director Dee Rees has a way of bringing out the best in her cast, and you may actually recognise her name from the Academy Award nominated Mudbound from 2017. Whilst I would consider it a slow burn, I think the moderate pacing is necessary to build relationships between the characters in a way that allows us as the audience to get to know them better, their flaws and their strengths, and also to allow the climax to really slap you in the face. Another film from the 2010s, it has that signature indie film vibe typical of the era. It's also a drama through and through with very little relief throughout. Pariah spotlights the struggles of being gay in a way that isn't gratuitously graphic or overly confrontational, yet still packs that emotional punch.
I'm free.
Well, that's it. That is the top 10 LGBT films by women and non-binary directors to watch this World Pride. Whew, we made it. I would love to know what you're all watching this World Pride. It can be directed by a woman or otherwise. It's really great that we get to celebrate lots of diverse voices here on the channel. So yeah, hit me up with some recommendations. Anyways, if you do want to check back on any of the films mentioned in this video, we have a written version of this video on the blog right now, www.thewomensdirection.com. We'll leave the link in the description just to make it easier for you to find all the films spoken about so you don't have to watch the whole thing again, but you know, feel free to watch the whole thing again, I won't judge. Okay, I think we can leave it there. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye! Very good film, but they are all directed by Ben, and by Ben? They're all directed by Ben. No, the construction. I'd liken it to something. My final honorable mention is construction work.